Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Butterfly Princess Academy, where curiosity takes flight and wisdom wears wings. Today, we're kicking off our new course of Everyday School Day. This new course we're going to be studying over the next 24 weeks of Everyday School Day is entitled The Butterfly Princess's Guide to Global Folklore and Enchanted Tales, discovering magic in myths, legends, and wonder stories across culture. So the lecture we're going to be discussing today is lecture 1 of the course, and it's entitled The Eternal Slumber, Deconstructing Time and Destiny in Sleeping Beauty Traditions. So here goes. The tale of Sleeping Beauty, narrative woven into the fabric of global folklore, transcends its veneer of enchantment to probe profound existential qualities about questions about time, destiny, and agency. Across its myriad literations from Basile's vertical sun moon and tower from 1633, Charles Perrault's courtly label bonds published in 1697, and the brothers Grimm's sensualized Little Briar Rose published in 1812. The story's core elements remain eerily consistent: a cursed slumber, a premeditated awakening, and the interplay of fate and free will. This lesson deconstructs how these traditions employ temporal suspension and problem inability to reflect cultural anxieties, philosophical dilemmas, and shifting pedigrees of agency. The earliest known version, Basile's sun moon and Talia's subverts modern expectations. Talia's sleep, induced by a flax spindle, becomes a passive backdrop for violation. A king impregnates her, and she awakens only after giving birth. Here, destiny is intoxicated from violence, reflecting a fanciful worldview where individuals, particularly women, are pawns of cosmic forces. In contrast, Perrault's 17th century retelling, shaped by French saloon culture, softens the curse through a malevolent fairy's intervention, introducing the concept of mitigated fate. The princess's 100-year slumber becomes a liminal space where time heals social transgressions, accumulating in morally sanctioned union. The Grimms mirroring 19th century Germanic romanticism furthermore moralises the tale, emphasising purity and virtues as antidotes to destiny. Each intervention reveals evolving attitudes towards time's functions, from a chaotic force to a structured, redemptive pathway. The central on sleep, a narrative focus, operates as both curse and catalyst. Time heals for the princess that accelerates extreme forests engulf castles, destinies fall, and the world evolves without her. This status symbolises social phase of obsolescence and the tension between tradition and progress. The princess Eleanor's ageless body, preserved in garmency, becomes a relic of an idealised past, while her awakening signals a fraught rebirth into modernity. Perrault's enchanted castle, shrouded in thorny virtue, embodies time's dual role as destroyer and protector. decaying the old world while safeguarding the princess's innocence. The prince's timely arrival coinciding with the curse's expiration underscores Destiny's precision, framing time as a almost mathological force. The curse delivered at birth anticipates Destiny's inescapability, yes, its modification. Peralt's substitution of death for sleep introduces nuanced fates but not valuable. This paradoxical interplay reflects Enlightenment era optimism, where human virtue embodied by the benevolent fairy tempers divine warmth. The spindle, a symbol of transformed into an instrument of doom, anticipates the tension between predation and chance. In Basile's tale, destiny is brutish and abnormal. Talia's trauma is devoid of moral lesson. Conversely, the Grimm's version moralizes fate. Briar Rose's purity align her with divine favour, readying her earning a reward. The prince often portrayed as Destiny's agent, straggles free wild and his crest through perilous fields, blurring the line between choice and cosmic design. The princess's passivity, a hallmark of the tale, mirrors historical grandeur arms. Her garments are corporal manifestation of silent staging, to positions her as an object to be acted upon. Time in this context enforces political control. Her value lies in preservation, not action. Basile's Talia, through awakened by childbirth, remains voiceless, her body a site of male conquest. Perrault's Sleeping Beauty, by contrast, acknowledges awakens to a technological destiny of marriage and motherhood. Her slumber serving as a catalyst for the spindle, gendered symbolism, a domestic tool-term weapon, further underscores the parallel of female autonomy in a world governed by male prophecy. Contemporary adaptations such as Maleficent 2014 disrupt traditional pedigrees, granting the princess agency and reimagining the courses a critique of toxic times. Time becomes a multiple contrast and a destiny of collaborative endeavour rather than an imposition. These revisions reflect postmodern skepticism of grand narratives, positioning time and face as tools for empowerment rather than oppression. The Sleeping Beauty tradition is a kaleidoscope. Variations reveals humanity's enduring fascination with time passage and destiny's grip, whether formed as a moral lesson, analogy, or a vehicle for essential equality. The tale's power lies in its ability to metamorphosize along cultural preoccupations. By deconstructing its temporal and fateful architecture, we uncover not only this but also its mirror-like capacity to reflect our deepest anxieties about agency, modernity, and the intoxicable march of time. In the princess's eternal slumber, we glimpse our own suspended dance between the fleeting and eternal. So here's a summary of Sleeping Beauty in the Wood Part 1. In a distant kingdom, a king and queen yearn desperately for a child. Their prayers, pilgrimages, and offerings to saints and healers seemed in vain, until at last the queen gave birth to a radiant baby girl. The kingdom rejoiced, and the royal couple's joy knew no bounds. To celebrate their daughter's christening, they invited 7 benevolent fairies, guardians of virtue and magic, to bestow blessings upon the infant. Yet yet fate intervened when a grave oversight occurred. An elderly fairy, one believed to be dead or exiled, arrived uninvited. Her absence, a cruel risk of miscommunication. The christening feast began in splendour with golden plates and goblets for the honoured fairies, but the old fairy, humiliated by her exclusion, simmered with resentment. As the youngest fairy hid behind the tapestry wary of the crone's malice, the others bestowed their gifts: beauty, wit, grace, musical talent, and dancing prowess. When the old fairy's turn came, she hobbled forward, her voice dripping with venom. My gift, she declared, is death. On her 16th birthday, she would prick her finger on a spindle and perish. The course erupted in despair until the 7th fairy emerged, her voice steady with resolve. Though she could not break the curse, she softened its blow. The princess would not die but sleep for a century, a period of 100 years. Only when awakening only when a prince, the son of a king, arrived to stand by her side. Years passed, and the princess bloomed into a paragon of charm and talent. Her parents' face buried beneath layers of denial. Yet on her 16th birthday, curiosity led her to a secluded tower where an ancient spinning wheel lay hidden. As foretold, she pricked her finger and collapsed into a death-like slumber. Panic swept the castle, servants wept, physicians failed, and the dwarf, a loyal retainer, raced 21 leagues in his 7-league boots to summon the 7th fairy. With a wave of her wand, the fairy cast the entire court into an enchanted sleep, shielding the castle with thorns and brambles. The king and queen's hearts shattered, abandoned their home, leaving time to weave its magic around the hidden fortress. For 100 years, the castle faded into legend. Villagers whispered of ogresses, witches, and spectral gatherings within the overgrown ruins. Only the eldest among them remembered fragments of the truth. When a young prince, adventurous and bold, rode near the fortified towers, an elder recounted the tale of the sleeping princess. Defying warnings, the prince hackled through Briar's, discovering a courtyard frozen in time. Guards snored at their posts, cooks slumped over half-prepared feast, and courtiers dozed mid-conversation. Ascending to a sunlit chamber, he found the princess, Ethel, untouched by age, and knelt beside her. At that moment, the spell broke. Her eyes fluttered open, and she greeted him with a smile. Oh, so you are the prince. You have waited a long time to come, eh? As the princess rose, the castle stirred to life. Servants resumed their tasks, fires crackled anew, and laughter echoed through halls silent for a century. That very day, the prince and princess wed, their union sealing the fairy's prophecy. Yet the tale's quiet revelations lies not in the princess's power, but in the princess's agency. She awoke on her own. The curse's timer expired, and the princess simply arrived as destiny's companion. This version subverts tradition, traditional rescue narratives. The princess's awakening is not a reward for the prince's bravery, but a natural accumulation of time and fate. For parents, the story mirrors hope for their children, not dependency on a saviour, but faith that maturity will bring clarity and their right partner will appear when the moment is ripe. Folk tales evolve with their audiences. Children marvel at magic and romance. Adults discover deeper truths about patience, autonomy, and the passage of time. Here, the prince's central long slumber symbolises the transition from childhood to adulthood, a dominant phase before life's next chapter. The prince's role shifts from hero to witness, emphasising that love thrives not in dramatic rescue, but in shared readiness. The tale's endurance lies in its adaptability. Some versions end with the weddings, others, as in part 2, delve into deeper sequels. For example, the prince's mother, an ogress, threatening the princess's children. Each literation reflects cultural values. Medieval France's focus on lineage, romanticism's ideation of love, and modern reinterpretations stressing female agency. Ultimately, Sleeping Beauty endures because it invites us to revisit its layers, funding new resources as we age. It is a mirror held to our changing selves, proving that the richest stories are those that grow alongside us. The Tale of Sleeping Beauty. Whilst Charles Perrault's Sleeping Beauty in the Wood and the Brothers Grimm's Little Briar Rose are among the most well-known versions. Similar methods and narrative structures can be found in folklore from around the world. Despite the diverse cultural context in which the Sleeping Beauty narrative appears, certain methods remain consistent across versions. The central element of a beautiful princess, a malevolent curse, often delivered by a fairy witch, a prolonged sleep, and a heroic awakening are common threads that connect these tales. These recurring methods suggest universal themes related to fate, destiny, the passage of time, and the triumph of good over evil. While the core elements of the Sleeping Beauty narrative remain consistent, variations in plot and character reflect the unique cultural value and beliefs of each tradition. For example, in some versions, the curse is delivered as a result of a slight or offensive, highlighting the importance of social etiquette and respect for authority. In others, the princess's sleep is brought about by a magical artifact or spell, emphasising the power of the supernatural and the dangers of forbidden knowledge. The character of the prince or hero also varies across cultures. In some versions, he is a valiant knight who bravely battles obstacles to reach the sleeping princess, while in others he is a more passive figure who simply stumbles upon the enchanted castle. These variations reflect different cultural ideas of masculinity and heroism. The Sleeping Beauty narrative serves as a vehicle for transmitting cultural values and beliefs from one generation to the next. In some cultures, the tale emphasises the importance of obedience and adherence to social norms, warning against the dangers of disobedience or defiance. In others, the narrative celebrates the power of love, compassion, highlighting the transformative potential of human connection. The tale can also be interpreted as a metaphor for the cyclical nature of life, death, and rebirth. The princess's prolonged sleep represents a period of dormancy, a stratagem where her awakening symbolises renewal and the promise of a brighter future. Sun, Moon and Tower, Italy. Basile's version presents a darker, more complex narrative with themes of sexual assault and unattained consequences. The House in the Wood, Germany, the Brothers Grimm version, focuses on the themes of obedience and the consequences of defying parental authority. Folk tales from Russia and Eastern Europe. These versions often incorporate elements of Slavic mythology and folklore, with Baba Yaga-like figures delivering the curse. The Sleeping Beauty narrative, in its various cultural adaptations, offers a rich tapestry of themes, methods, and cultural values. By examining the similarities and differences between these versions, we can gain a deeper understanding of the universal human experience that connects us all. The tale serves not only as a form of entertainment, but also as a powerful tool for transmitting cultural knowledge and shaping individual beliefs. The, the tale of The tale of Sleeping Beauty in the Wood has captivated audiences for centuries, not merely as a story of enchantment and romance, but as a narrative rich with symbolic depth. The expanded summary of Part 1 reveals layers of meaning and that transcended its fairy tale veneer, addressing themes of fate and agency, the passage of time, parental aspirations, and the evolution of cultural values. Right, so here we go. The king and queen's desperate yearning for a child underscores a universal human longing, the desire for legacy and continuity. Their eventful joy at the princess's birth reflects social ideas of familiar fulfilment, yet their oversight in excluding the elderly fairy exposes the fragility of human judgment. This lapse, born of assumption rather than malice, sets the tragedy in motion. How does the story frame the consequences of human error in contrast to supernatural intervention? The old fairy's curse represents the invincibility of fate, a force beyond mortal control. However, the seven fairies' intervention introduces nuance, offering absolute doom in suspended animation. This duality illustrates the interplay between an agency. While the curse cannot be undone, its severity is tempered, suggesting that even within rigid destinies, small acts of defiance hold power. Does the seven fairies' softening of the curse truly grant the princess's agency, or does it merely delay the fulfilment of the premeditated path? The royal couple's denial of the prophecy mirrors a parental instinct to shield children from harm. Their failure to destroy all spinning wheels, a futile attempt to accumulate fate, highlights the limits of control. The princess's curiosity, a natural trait of adolescence, becomes the catalyst for the curse, symbolising the inevitability of confronting one's destined trials. To what extent does the story critique the illusion of parental control over a child's destiny? The castle's central long slumber serves as a metaphor for suspended growth. Time erases the princess from collective memory, transforming her into myth. Yet the thorns and brambles, nature's reclaiming of human structures into a transit nature of power and legacy. The prince's arrival, guided by fragmented folklore, suggests that truth persists even when distorted by time. The princess's autonomous awakening subverts traditional resource tropes. The princess's role shifts from active saviour to passive witness, emphasising that love and destiny align through mutual readiness rather than heroic deeds. Their immediate union underscores social ideas of marriage as an actual accumulation of maturity, yet it also invites scrutiny of romanticised conclusions. The tale's adaptability across eras from medieval preoccupation with lineage to modern emphasis on female autonomy reveals its function as a cultural mirror. Each illustration reflects contemporary values, ensuring its relevance. For children, it is a story of magic. For adults, a mediation on patience and the passage of time. Right. Sleeping Beauty in the wood enjoys not because of its enchantment, but because of its themes resonate across the human experience. It invites us to grapple with the tension between destiny and choice, the weight of time, and the evolving narrative that shape our understanding of love and growth. By posting questions that challenges simplistic perceptions, the story transcends its fairy tale origin, urging readers to seek meaning in its shadows in silence. As we revisit the tale through different stages, it becomes less a story about Sleeping Beauty and more a reflection of our own awakening journeys. The tale of Sleeping Beauty in the Wood transcends its fairy tale framework to interrogate profound themes of human fragility, destiny, and social norms. The king and queen's failure to invite the elderly fairy to their daughter's christening, a lapse rooted in assumption rather than malice, sets this tragedy in motion. Their oversized right, we've done this. The story frames human error as a catalyst for chaos, while supernatural intervention acts as both punishment and mitigation. The Seven Fairies' inability to fully nullify the curse highlights humanity's subgearing to higher powers. Yet her acts of mercy suggest that even within premeditated framework, small acts of defiance hold means. The Seven Fairies' alteration of the curse, transforming death into a central on slumber, appears to grant the princess reprieve. However, her awakening is on external factors, the passage of time with the prince's arrival. This duality communicates agency. The princess awakens, autonomy, yet her fate remains tethered to a prince's timing. The softened curse does not dismantle and reshape its tenacity. The princess's awakening symbolises latent agency. Her survival hinges on enduring a trial of time, yet her passive role during sleep reflects social constraints on female autonomy. The narrative just straddles empowerment and military mirroring tensions in real-world struggles for self-determination. The king and queen's attempt to avert the curse, banging spinning wheels and clinging to denial, exposed the fragility of controlling a child's destiny. Their actions critique the social pressures on parents to engineer perfect futures, revealing how fear-driven decisions often exuberate vulnerability. The story condemns not parents' love, but the hubris of believing destiny can be outsmarted. The princess's inevitable encounter with the spindle underscores the growth that growth requires confronting ungovernable trials, challenging cultures that prioritise control over resilience. The castle's country, long obscurity, symbolises how history erases and distorts truth. Villagers' rumours of ogresses and witches reflect collective amnesia, while the elders' fragmented memory pressures the tale's essence. The prince's rediscovery of the castle suggests that history, through a fragmented cycle, back to reveal buried truths. Time acts as both a veil and a revealer, the thorn shielding the castle analyse how societies obscure uncomfortable truths, yet the princess's persistence demonstrates that legacies persist beneath layers of myth. The princess's prolonged slumber can be read as a metaphor for the silencing of women in some societies. Her passivity mirrors historical migration, while her awakening, self-initiated yet reliant on male presence, captures the paradox of women reclaiming their voices within constrained systems. The sleep symbolises enforced dormancy, but her awakening though framed by destiny, subtly critique systems that secrete female agency with waiting. Modern reinterpretations might frame her resurgence as defiance, transforming the narrative into one of quiet rebellion. Sleeping Beauty of the Wood. The tale unfolds with a marriage between a prince and a princess, shrouded in secrecy due to the princess's perilous lineage. His father, a human king, had married an ogress, a figure of insatiable appetites, who harboured a deep disdain for humans, particularly the princess. For years, the princess concealed the prince concealed his true life, fabricating visits to a woodcutter's cottage to mask his time with his beloved. Over time, their union bore two children, a daughter named Morning or Aurora, and a son named Day. When the old king died, the prince ascended the throne, freeing him to reveal his family. The young king brought his wife and children to the palace, where joy reigned until war erupted. The king departed to lead his troops, entrusting the family to his oldest mother. Unbeknownst to him, this decision unleashed a nightmare. The ogress, whose hatred for girls was suppressed only by her craving to devour them, plotted to feast on the children. First, she demanded morning for breakfast. Horrified, the palace cook hid the girl and served lamb in her stead, deceiving the ogress with a savoury meal. Undeterred, the ogress next ordered day for dinner. Again, the cook substituted lamb, sparing the boy. Finally, the ogress turned her hunger to the queen herself. This time, the cook warmed the queen and presented venison as her replacement. For a time, the ruse succeeded until the ogress ruling the castle, overheard Gay's cries echoing from a hidden chamber. Enraged, she summoned the queen, children, and cook, preparing a cauldron of venomous creatures to boil them alive. At that climactic moment, the king returned, confronted the oldest, realizing her doom, leapt into the pot herself, consumed by fate she had entwined for others. Won't do that now. The second part of Sleeping Beauty in the Wood is not merely a continuation of a fairy tale, but a rich narrative tapestry interwoven with timeless themes. By examining its motifs, poetic justice, gender roles, symbolic names, the role of characters, and generational cycles, we uncover deeper insights into cultural values, moral frameworks, and the human connection. The ogress's fate, consumed by the cauldron she prepared for her victims, aligns with the universal literary Moffat villains undone by their own malice. This echoes Macbeth, whose unchecked ambition drives him to paranoia and ruin, and Scar from The Lion King, whose treachery leads to his exile and death. Similarly, in the Book of Esther, you Haman is executed on the gallows he built for Mordecai. These examples reveal a cultural insistence on moral equilibrium. Evil acts inevitably boomerang, reinforcing the idea that justice is intrinsic to the universe. This Moffat suggests that societies across eras have sought to codify morality through storytelling. By portraying villains as architects of their own downfall, tales like Sleeping Beauty affirm a belief in cosmic fairness, offering audiences catalysts and a warning against hubris. The princess's evolution from a passive figure awakened by a prince to an active defender of her children subverts traditional fairy tale gender roles. Classic stories like Cinderella or Snow White often depict women as inert beauties reliant on male saviours. Here, however, the princess battles domestic threats, mirroring her husband's wartime heroism. This duality challenges the notion that heroism is gendered, positioning protection as a shared duty. Yet the story also reinforces maternal archetypes. The queen's role as a domestic warrior aligns with historical ideas of motherhood and self-sacrifice, but the narrative both disrupts and upholds gender norms, reflecting the tensions between progressive agency and traditional expectations in fairy tales. The children's names, Morning and Day, symbolise renewal and continuity, evoking the rising sun's promise of a fresh beginning. These names foreshadow the roles in the cycle of protection and sacrifice. Just as dawn follows night, each generation inherits the duty to nurture and defend, suggesting the legacy is both a burden and a beacon. In literature, names often serve as destiny marketing, e.g., for example, Harry Potter's Chosen One theme. Here, morning and day signal hope, urging audiences to view challenges as transition and resilience as innate. Their names anticipate the tale's core message. Darkness yields to light and love outlets peril. The cook, though a minor character, holds prevalent agency. His defiance of the ogress serving the children and queen highlights that heroism is not confined to royalty or warriors. His compassion contrasts starkly with the ogress's cruelty positioning empathies the story's moral compass. But this reflects a recurring fairy tale theme. Humble figures, for example, the mice in Cinderella, often drive redemption. The cook's role underscores that morality transcends social class, suggesting that goodness lies in actions, not status. His bravery also invites readers to consider the quiet everyday heroes who challenge tyranny. The story's emphasis on parents letting go resonate with modern tensions between protection and independence. The king and queen shield their children but implicitly prepare them to inherit the same struggles, much like contemporary parents balancing guidance with autonomy. Today, this theme mirrors debates about helicopter parenting and fostering resilience. The tale cycle structures children becoming protectors, mirrors the human experience. Each generation must navigate its own trials. While honouring the past, it suggests that parenthood is not about control but equipping children to face the world's uncertainties. Sleeping Beauty in the Wood Part 2 transcends its fanciful veneer to probe enduring truths about justice, gender, legacy, and parenthood. The ogress's self-destruction reaffirms faith in moral balance. The princess's agency challenges gendered storytelling, and the cook's compassion elevates everyday heroism. Meanwhile, the children's names and the generational cycle remind us that hope and renewal are perpetual. Together, these themes reflect a cultural yearning for stories that validate our stories, our struggles, inspire resilience, and affirm the enduring power of love. In a modern world grappling with similar dichotomies, control versus freedom, tradition versus progress, the tale remains a mirror reflecting timeless questions about what it means to be human. Fairy tales seemingly simple narratives, often relegated to childhood, represent profound and complex cultural phenomenon. Their enduring presence across millennia and diverse societies has captivated not only generations of listeners and readers, but also a dedicated cadre of scholars from their numerous oral origins to their categorised forms and their profound psychological and social political impact. Fairy tales often a rich field for academic inquiry. A comprehensive understanding of this is necessary within an engagement with foundational collective systematic classification, critical interpretations, and an appreciation for the ongoing art of storytelling is illuminated by workers such as Basile, Perrault, Thompson, Zip Warrior, Cheshire, Briggs, and Perowski. The journey of the fairy tale from spoken words combined literally from its is a testament to its inherent power and adaptability. Basile's The Tale of Tales, published in the early 17th century, stands as one of the earliest and most significant literary collections, offering a glimpse into the raw, often dark narratives that pre-edited the centralised versions. Charles Perrault's The Complete Fairy Tales, appearing later in the same century, further cemented the literal tradition, shaping many of the tales we recognise today, such as Sleeping Beauty and Cinderella, and embodying them with a distinct courtly elegance and rustic taste. These early literal efforts were crucial in preserving tales that might otherwise have been lost. Similar interacting process of redefinement and adaptation that will continue for centuries. The academic study of fairy tales gained significant traction within the development of systematic classification methods, which allow scholars to trace narrative patterns across vast geographical and temporal distances. Sif Thompson's seminal work, The Folk Tale, provides a foundational framework for understanding the structural components of these narratives. Through his methods in type index, the work was later updated and expanded by Hans Jung Utter in the types of international folk tales, offering a comprehensive tool for comparing analysis. Such classification enables scholars to identify the common DNA of tales, revealing how similar plots and character archetypes manifest in different cultural contexts. Is further amplified by Catherine Briggs's detailed cataloguing in a dictionary of British folklore in the English language, which highlights national variations in specific and specific cultural nuances. Beyond classifications, scholars have delved into the deeper meaning and functions of fairy tale, emphasising various critical lenses. Jack Zippers, a prominent contemporary fairy tale scholar, through works like Happy Ever After and The Irresistible Fairy Tale, consistently challenges romanticised notions, offering inclusive social, political and historical analysis that expose the ideological underpinnings and evolving cultural work of these narratives. Marina Warner in Once Upon a Time similarly explores the historical and cultural impact of fairy tales, often focus on their gendered dimensions and their role in shaping social expectations. Complementing these social historical perspectives are psychological, such as those found intriguing The Witch Must Die, which delves into the architectural figure and symbol within fairy tales, exploring their relations with the human side and their role in personal development. Despite their literal familiarization and academic discourse, fairy tales retain their divinity through the ongoing art of storytelling. Augusta Perowski's The World of Storytelling celebrates the enduring practice of oral narration, highlighting its historical significance and contemporary relevance. Modern platforms such as the National Storytelling Network website further underscores the vibrant living transitions of storytelling, demonstrating these narratives are not merely artifacts of past, but dynamic, evolving forms of cultural expression. This continued oral tradition ensures that fairy tales remain accessible, adaptable and relevant, proving their appeal across generations. In Charles Perrault's Sleeping Beauty in the Woods, the narrative unfolds in two distinct parts, each offering a unique lens through which to examine themes of fate, time and social expectation. Part 1 introduces the curse and the princess's enchanted sleep, while Part 2 explores the awakening and subsequent challenges. The initial section of Sleeping Beauty establishes a world governed by both magic and social protocol. The uninvited fairy's curse sets the stage for the central conflict, highlighting the point of royal life and the ever-present threat of the unknown. The good fairy's intervention, altering the curse from death to sleep, introduces a crucial element of hope and the deferred fate. This act also underscores the power dynamics within the fairy realm, where blessings and curses hold significant sway over human destiny. The image of the crouching forest growing to conceal the castle symbolises the passage of time and the isolation of the sleeping princess. The thorns, initially a protective barrier, become a metaphor for the nature of fate and the challenges inherent in defying destiny. This section emphasises passivity. The princess and the court is suspended in time, awaiting an external force to break the enchantment. Part 2. The Awakening and the Ogre. The second part of Perrault's tale shifts focus from the passive slumber to active engagement with the changed world. The princess's arrival and the breaking of the curse represent not only a personal awakening for the princess, but also a re-awakening of the whole kingdom. This section introduces themes of courage, perseverance, and the rewards of overcoming adversity. However, the narrative takes a dark turn with the introduction of the princess's ogre mother. This character embodies the hidden dangers lurking beneath the surface of courtly life, challenging the idealised romance of the fairy tale. The ogre's cannibalistic desires and attempts to harm the princess and her children serve as a stark reminder of the ever-present threats of evil, even in the most enchanting settings. Sleeping Beauty in the One presents a dual narrative structure that allows for a comprehensive exploration of its central themes. Part 1 establishes the enchanted world and the inescapable nature of fate, while Part 2 confronts the challenges of re-entering a world fraught with danger and deception. Through these two parts, Perrault crafts a timeless tale that continues to resonate with readers, offering insights into the complexities of enduring human nature and the enduring power of hope. Fairy tales, similar simple narratives, often relegate. I think I've done this. The journey of a fairy tale from epic spoken words to confined literary form is a testament to its inherent power and adaptability. Bastile's The Tale of Tales, published in the early 17th century, stands as one of the earliest and most significant literal collections, offering a glimpse into the raw, often dark narratives that penetrate that predated the more centralised versions. Charles Perrault's The Complete Fairy Tale, appearing later in the same century, further cemented the literal tradition, shaping many of the tales we recognise today. The academic study of fairy tales gained significant traction with the development of systematic classification methods, which allow scholars to trace narrative patterns across vast geographical and temporal distances. Um, uh, so Basile, the Tale of Tales. One of the earliest and most important literal collections of fairy tales published in the 17th century, contribution preserved many traditional tales in a literal form, often with darker, more complex narratives than later versions. It served as a foundational source for subsequent collectors like the brothers Grimm, Catherine Briggs, a dictionary of Deconstructing the Enchantment, a critical analysis of key works in fairy tale studies and their cultural context. Fairy tales, often perceived as simple narratives for children, are in fact complex cultural artifacts that reflect the values, beliefs, and anxieties of societies from which they originate. The academic study of fairy tales has evolved into a rich and multifaceted field, drawing upon disciplines such as folklore, literature, psychology, history, and cultural studies. So, Bastille. The Tale of Tales also is a collection of 50 fairy tales framed within a narrative structure reminiscent of published in the Neapolitan district. It represents one of the earliest and most significant literal collections of fairy tales in Europe. Bastile's work emerges from the vibrant and often vulgar culture of 17th century Naples, a city known for its and its embrace of power, popular traditions. The tales reflect the social realities of the time, including class divisions, gender roles, and the ever present threat of violence. Charles Perrault, The Complete Fairy Tale, 17th Century France. His skill, right, published in 1697, it is a collection of written and modern instructive fairy tales that include classics such as Cinderella, Little Red Riding Hood, and Sleeping Beauty. Perrault's tales were written for the court of Louis XVI, the Sun King, and reflect the refined taste and moral sensibilities of the French aristocracy. The stories emphasise the importance of courtly manners, social decorum, and the virtues of obedience and piety. Catherine Briggs, A Dictionary of British Folklore in the English Language, 20th century, published. This comprehensive dictionary is research compilation of British folklore, folk tales, legends, and traditions, organised alphabetically and cross-referenced for easy access. Briggs's work reflects on a growing interest in folklore and early traditions in the 20th century, as scholars sought to preserve and document the cultural heritage of rural communities. Mhm. Mm. Right. The character of the sleeping princess herself embodies the idealised femininity expected of aristocratic women. She is described as exceptionally beautiful, graceful, and innocent. Her one passive slumber awaiting a predestined prince reflects the social expectations for noble women to be apparent virtuous and primarily defined by their beauty and their eventful role in a suitable marriage. Their agencies were often limited within their lives, largely determined by familial and political arrangements. The princess's awakening by a prince rather than by her own actions reinforce the structure where a woman's destiny is often fulfilled through a man. Perrault's unique edition of the ogre mother in the second part of the tale offers a darker, more complex reflection of courtly anxieties and moral concerns. While the first part concludes with a seemingly perfect union, the introduction of the cannibalistic mother who attempts to devour the princess and her children injects a chilling realism. This element can be interpreted as a cautionary tale about the hidden dangers and moral corruptions that could lurk beneath the polished surface of even the most exalted families. It speaks to the political intrigues, jealousy, and the power struggles that were endemic in court life, where even family members could pose a threat. The eventful triumph over the older mother, often through cunning and the intervention of loyal servant, reinforces the ultimate victory of virtue and rightful succession, aligning with the moral criticism often found in literature intended for a courtly audience. And finally, the explicit most appended to Perrault's tale directly articulates lessons intended for his readers. These often emphasise patience, the rewards of virtue, the dangers of haste, and the importance of good conduct. Such direct instruction was a common feature of 17th century literature, designed not only to entertain but also to educate and reinforce the moral and social codes deemed essential for the proper functioning of aristocratic society. In conclusion, The Sleeping Beauty in the Wood is far from a simplistic fantasy. Through its detailed portrayal of royal life, its emphasis on strict social protocols, its depiction of idealised gender roles, and its inclusion of both enchanting and terrifying elements, Perrault's narrative provides a rich and lucid reflection of 17th century French court society. It served as both entertainment and a subtle reinforcement of the values, beliefs, and anxieties that define the gilded, often polished world of Louis XVI's aristocracy. Uh, so Basile, sun moon and tower from Italy of the 17th century presents a far more brutal and less romanticised version of the tale, reflecting the darker, more cynical worldview prevalent in Napolitan folklore. The story begins with a king's non-consensual encounter with the sleeping tower, resulting in the birth of twins during her slumber. This stark departure from the traditional true love kiss awakening highlights a more pragmatic and less idealised view of relationships and female agency. The subsequent jealousy of the king's wife, her attempts to murder the children, and the king's brutal revenge reveal a world driven by passion, power, and a willingness to resort to violence, violence to achieve one's desires. The absence of explicit moral lessons and the moral actions of the characters suggests a society less concerned with dictatism and more accepting of the complexities and contradictions of human nature. The Brothers Grimm Little Briar Rose, Germany, 19th century, offers a more domesticated and morally straightforward adaptation, aligning with their broader project of collecting and preserving German folk culture for a wider, often younger audience. The focus shifts towards themes of destiny, protection, and the eventful triumph of good over evil. The curse is presented as fate, but the good fairy's intervention softens the blow, transforming death into a prolonged sleep. The princess's kiss, rather than simply the passage of time, awakens the princess, embodying the act with romantic and transformative power. The absence of the old grandmother and the strenuous narrative creates a more comforting and optimistic tale reflecting the values of family virtue and the promise of a happily ever after that were central to emerging German national identity and the sensibilities of the time. So, Middle Eastern and Asian folk tales, the emphasis may be placed on the importance of family loyalty and the protection of honour. The princess's sleep could be caused by I won't read that bit. Furthermore, the fact that many versions of the Sleeping Beauty end with a marriage of the princess and the prince, while others, like the one reinforced reference, continue the narrative, underscores the open-ended nature of those tales and their capacity for adaptation and reinterpretation. The ending is not necessarily its fixed point, but rather a point of departure from further exploitation. The continuation of the stories mentioned allows for the examination of new themes and challenges, further enriching the narrative's complexity and relevance. In conclusion, the version of Sleeping Beauty where the princess awakens on her own, guided by fate and internal readiness, rather than a princess's kiss, offers a powerful and enduring message about self-discovery, destiny, and the evolving nature of meaning. This interpretation resonates deeply with parental hopes for their children's autonomy and their individual paths. The tale's capacity to provide layered meanings that adapt to our changing needs and perspectives throughout life is a testament to the enduring power of folk tales and their ability to illuminate the complexities of the human experience. The absence of the traditional kiss is not a deficiency, but rather an invitation to explore deeper, more lucid themes that continue to captivate and inspire audiences across generations. The eternal sleep, slumber, deconstructing, the destiny of time and destiny in sleeping beauty traditions. So, the sleeping beauty method spanning cultures and centuries intertwines time and destiny to reflect social values. Early illustrations like Basile, Sun, Moon and Tower, 1634, frame the heroine's sleep as an curse mirroring the same. Charles Perrault's 1697 version, however, introduces moral lessons, emphasising virtue as a shield against destiny, aligning with Enlightenment ideas of agency. The Brothers Grimm 1812 version later sanctuarised darker elements reflecting 19th century romanticism and moral purity. Culturally, the spindle, a domestic tool, symbolised gendered peril, linking female mutilation to maturation to vulnerability. The curse's inevitable time is a fixed force, contrasts with the prince's role as a disruptor, underscoring rescue narratives. In contrast, modern retellings like Disney's 1959 film romanticises passive waiting, while feminist revisions reclaim agency subverting destiny. Across tradition, time, and destiny, between facing intervention revealing cultural anxieties about control, gender, and social order, the tale's endurance lies in its adaptability, framing slumber not as a surrender, but as a liminal space where cultured values are both preserved and challenged. So here are some questions, and then I'm going to read you the questions and then read you the answers. How do pre-modern fatalism and Enlightenment ideals contrasting Basile versus Perrault's versions of Sleeping Beauty? What does the spindle symbolise in traditional narratives, and how does it reflect gendered social anxieties? How did the Brothers Grimm's edits to the tale align with 19th century cultural values? In what ways does Disney's Sleeping Beauty reinforce or challenge passive femininity compared to earlier versions? How do feminist retellings subvert the practical rescue narrative central to the tale? Why might limit, e.g., the slumber itself, be a critical concept for analysing the tale's cultural endurance? How does the prince's role as a disruptor of time and destiny reflects historical power dynamics. What does the curses reveal about social views of free will versus determination? How does the tale's adaptability across eras demonstrate drifting attitudes toward female agency? What might the moffat of enforced slumber resonate? Why might the moffat of enforced slumber resonate universally, transcending specific cultural context? Here are the answers. Basile, Sun, Moon and Tower from 1916 first floor reflects pre-modern fatalism, portraying sleep as an inseparable curse tied to divine or supernatural forces. Perrault's 1697 version, influenced by Enlightenment optimism, introduces moral agency virtue. The princess's innocence mitigates destiny, aligning with ideas of self-determination. The spindle symbolises gendered peril, linking domestic labour to female vulnerability. Its role as a catalyst for the curse reflects anxieties about women's maturation and social fears of uncontrolled female autonomy. The Grimms analysed darker elements, removing rape moffats, emphasising moral purity and romanticised virtue, mirroring 19th century Burgundy ideals of family and female feminine innocence. Disney amplifies passivity. Aurora's agency is erased and her salvation hinges entirely on the prince's intervention. Romanticising female dependency compared to earlier moral or symbolic complexity. They reframe slumber as self-actuation, waking through inner strength, or critique the princess's role, portraying heroines who defy fate without male intervention. The slumber, escape between life and death, allows cultural interrogation. It spends time enabling societies to project evolving anxieties, for example, gender roles, autonomy, and a static figure. As a disruptor, the prince embodies authority where male actions overrides female statuses. This reinforces historical norms positioning men as attributes and women's destinies. Because early tales from destiny is immutable fate, while modern revisions treatises negotiable choice, showcasing progression from gender determination to empowerment. Right, and here are some rhetorical questions. So again, I will read you the questions and then read you the insights. Can a simple spindle truly anticipate centuries of fear surrounding women's autonomy? Does the prince's kiss liberate the heroine, or merely perpetrate the illusion of male saviorship? Is the curse inevitability a mirror of social determination or a challenge to defy it? What great power exists when a narrative that pauses time itself to interrogate its own values? When does a passive slumber transform into a radical act of reclaiming time? Can a sleeping woman ever be just a sleeping woman, or is she always a metaphor? If a tale survives by adapting, does the eternal slumber prove that no ideology is immortal? So here are the insights. Sleeper's resistance. The heroine's enforced slumber can be read as a subversive act, a refusal to participate in practical systems until social conditions shift to acknowledge her agency. time is corrupt. Because since temporary, for example, 100 years, mirrors how social norms enforce timelessness for female roles. For example, marriage, motherhood, framing divination as transgression. Awakening is the princess's kiss doesn't just save the heroine, it erases her liminal autonomous existence, reinstating her into a world governed by gendered expectations. Adaptability is survival. The tale's persistence relies on its vengefulness, but by never explaining why sleep is the chosen punishment, it becomes a blank state for cultural projection. The spindle, a tool of women's labour, turns lethal, exposing how societies romanticise female productivity while punishing the autonomy it enables. The curses reflects not cosmic destiny but human systems. For example, class, gender, lives making fate, a metamorphosis. Sleeping is power. Sleeping beauty's muteness during slumber paradoxically amplifies her symbolic weight. Her passivity becomes a canvas for cultural critique, proving silence can be louder than speech. The Sleeping Final Thoughts. The Sleeping Beauty tradition endures not because it offers answers, but because it dares to pause time, inviting us to interrogate power, autonomy, and the stories we inherit. From fatalism to feminist reclamation, the tale mirrors humanity's eternal dance between imagination and rebellion, preserving that even the oldest curses can be rewritten. Inspirational quotes to carry forward. Sleep is a rose, as the Persians say. Time is a river, but that sweeps me along, but I am the river. We are the ones we have been waiting for. The slumber persists, but so does the choice to awaken on our own terms. And that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, concludes today's lesson at the Butterfly Princess Academy. Thank you for joining me today for the first lecture of our new course of Everyday School Day, where we're looking into the global folk tales. And I very much hope you can join me in the near future for future lessons. But until then, have a lovely rest of your week, and I will see you again very soon. Bye for now and take care. Bye.